All right, guys, this is one of those videos that I'm making on the fly. I'm just gonna riff. I have no idea what I'm gonna talk about. When I get that feeling, I try to act on it. The video may not even get used. It might never get published. But when that feeling crops up, I try to act on it because there's a reason. I always feel like there's a reason why it has to happen. And maybe it's because the opportunity has somewhat presented itself. My plan tonight was to donate plasma at BioLife, but they told me my iron was too low tonight, so it was only 1 point off. This is what happens every now and then, is if I donate long enough without any kind of incidences, like my protein is right, my iron's right, everything else is right, then what happens is I'll come in one day and bam, I'm 1 point too low in my iron. I think that donating continuously does that. I think it does it to your protein too. But I'm not really sure about that. I'm not a doctor. So, I just play one in the bedroom. Actually, no, I don't. I wish I could have that opportunity. But anyway, my thought was, I wonder if guys who pump iron ever have this problem. I mean, I'm talking about actual iron. If the guys that pump iron, do they ever, well, first of all, do they ever donate plasma? And if they do, is their iron ever too low? I'm saying all this really knowing that you, the viewer, probably don't care. But it's a thought, because I've heard that your body can absorb iron if that's what you do, right? So I hope that is healthy, and I wonder if it reflects, when they draw blood and they test this before you go back and have plasma done. Anyway, I have no idea. I don't have any idea how that works. How was your weekend, by the way? By the time you're seeing this, it's already been a couple days out, so maybe the question isn't appropriate. You might have already forgotten about it, and now you're thinking about the new one coming up. I hope it was good. Mine was a little too lazy. Now, I always think this is going to be a good idea, but usually it's not. I like being productive. I like getting as much done as I can. And oftentimes I feel tired because I've done so much on the weekend. I really try to get ahead of things. But that's better than doing nothing. Now, in my head, I always think to myself, I think there's a right time to do absolutely nothing, just to relax, just to rest. But as it turns out, I always feel sluggish when I go back to work after having done that. I don't feel right. Like, I feel like I've betrayed myself. I could have done more with my time. And if you have too many weekends or you're just being lazy, sitting around, then, that stacks up after a while, right? But at the same time, I can't seem to strike a balance. Either I'm too busy or I'm too lazy. Where do you fall in all of that? I don't think there's too many of us who really can balance things out very well. I think most people go to one extreme or the other. People always talk about trying to find balance in their life between work and home, or work and play, or whatever the case might be, family and social life, and any two things. We try to find balance. Maybe it's more than two things. But I don't think most of us really experience balance. And I think we believe that if we ever struck it, we would know what it felt like and it would make our lives better. I'm just not really so sure that's true. Because we're so unfamiliar with what balance is in our life that how would we know that we had found it? Would we recognize it, and would it feel okay? See, that's the trick, is would we feel okay with striking the right levels in our life where everything seems to balance out correctly? I would think we would question it. And because we don't experience it very often, we would feel like it was kind of wrong. Correct? That's what I think. And I think this is probably why most of us don't ever think we have it. And the reason why I'm convinced that we don't is there are so many books written about it. There are so many videos made about it, and everybody's all the time talking about it. And everybody talks about seeking it. In fact, that there's a whole generation of people that kind of made that a priority, and it was kind of like my generation. I think my parents were baby boomers. What were after the baby boomers? I don't know. I don't keep up with all that stuff. But the generation like around when I was born, mid to late 60s, early 70s, maybe around 1980. I don't know. But during that time when young people were questioned, like what do they want in life, it was different than what previous generations had said. And one of the things they said the most was they want to find balance. They want to balance everything out. I think it's because they saw parents working so much. Like my mom and dad were born in the mid 40s, and a lot of people my age, their parents were too, and we saw them work extremely hard. These are the kids who were born right around the time of World War II, and right after that, and it was people still had certain kinds of values, and so work was a priority, and you still had somewhat of a traditional home, a nuclear family, and so people worked really hard. A lot of times the moms still stayed home. Now, a lot of that was dying off, and even by the time I was growing up, women working in the workplace was pretty common. However, it was not forgotten. And maybe women working in the work, maybe women going to work was part of the issue with these young people, because mom and dad were often absent. Now both of them were working all the time, and they could never get enough. They had to make more money to be able to afford nicer, bigger homes, and it required more hours. And now that we have extra money, we can put our kids in more classes and more events and so on and so forth. And now the kids are overstimulated, and now they're doing more than they ever have. And so everything is upended. We have more, we can do more, but we're less balanced, aren't we? We're burning the candle at both ends, and everybody's tired all the time. Now, I don't know about previous generations. When they were around, most of them had passed away by this time. When they were around, we weren't thinking of these kinds of things that I'm talking about right now, so we wouldn't have had these kind of conversations with them. So I guess if I could go back in time, I would say, what did you prioritize? I'm sure there's a survey somewhere online you can find where somebody did conduct a test or presented a battery of questions to people like our parents and asked them. That's how they got information on us. I don't remember what they would have said. Maybe it was to be financially stable, and maybe it's to have the things that their parents didn't have. I mean, life was different for parents from my generation than they were for the generation behind them. I mean, now everybody has running water. At that time, everybody had running water and toilets in their homes and dishwashers and refrigerators, and so things are a lot different. My dad grew up in a home where they could see through the floorboard to the dirt underneath the house. That's how different things were in his time when he was growing up as a kid in San Antonio, Texas. Okay? So by the time he had his own kids, me, and my brothers and sisters, things were vastly different. I mean, life was just looked way different. So I don't know that my father's generation or my mother's generation would have said, we want balance. See, here's the thing. I think people from my era and going forward, we had so much. What else was there to ask for? Well, opportunities are rife. Money's to be made. Travel is easy. And now information is fast, and the world is our oyster. So we can afford to look a little more philosophical and a little more virtuous and say, yeah, I just want some equilibrium. I just want some equilibrium in my life. I just think it's a little precocious, right? I think it's almost mythical. I don't know that if equilibrium is what we need, I don't think it'll necessarily make us happier. And I don't even think it's the missing component to all the things that we're searching for, right? I think if we found some balance, some equilibrium in our life, I think if everything leveled off to where everything was equal, it would be so boring. And without any kind of turbulence at all, without any kind of challenges to kind of find out how we're going to let one thing go to meet the needs of another, or to sacrifice something over here so that we may gain more over here. I think without that, we would stop growing. So I personally don't think that we need so much balance in our life as much as we'd say. Now, we do seek, I do seek it personally in certain ways. Okay, for instance, when I work out, I do a full body workout every time I work out. I'm not one of these people who does like these, I don't know if they call them split workouts or what, where one day they work chest and their back or legs or whatever, and another day they do something else. No, I do everything. I would do a full body workout every time I work out. I work out about 5 days a week. So I try to balance everything out. I do the same number of reps for everything, or at least I try to, okay? It's an arbitrary number I've got in my head. It's usually like 100 of everything, okay? It's not necessary, but in my head, it's what I'm trying to go for. I want to level everything off. But can you imagine if I tried to do that with everything in my life? If you have little kids, I'm gonna try to spend as much time with one kid as the other one. I'm gonna treat every child the same, when every child has different needs and different personalities, and that's a little strange if we were to try to treat everything on the same grade, right? So, I try to find balance at work. Because I kind of think that way anyway. I'm no different than anybody else. I try to formulate ways to do my work in ways that will, I don't know, make it seem like everything is getting the same fair shake. All the customers are getting the same treatment from me. Because to have a formula by which I'm trying to gain some equilibrium, it means I no longer have to think about what I'm doing, right? I no longer have to think about it. I almost become mechanical. Everything becomes very automatic and very robotic, and perhaps a little less challenging. And I think maybe that's what's at the root of what I'm trying to say here, is that if we were really striking a balance in everything in life, I think that's why it would become boring, right? It would become boring because we would start to operate on automatic mode. It's the same thing like when you're driving down the road and you have a certain way of driving. Like I'm very mechanical about my driving. I'll be the first to admit it. I pick a certain speed I want to drive, like over the speed limit. I do go over the speed limit, but I have like a formula in my head as to what speed I'm going to go. And I've done it for so many years, but after a while, I actually get sick of the mechanics of it, and I throw all caution to the wind. I just drive however I want. Now, for a lot of people, that's what they do all the time, and they can't imagine doing it the way I do it. But I guess maybe why this is something that I'm thinking about is because I'm very prone to seeking balance in so many different areas of my life. And what I've discovered is that life doesn't care what you want. If you think you've got it figured out, it's good maybe to try to find a routine that works and somewhat balances everything out. But life will always throw curveballs at you, and it'll happen just as soon as you get comfortable. And maybe that's a good thing. because it means that we will no longer, we can no longer convince ourselves that we are in control. And I guess maybe that's a lot of what trying to find balance in our life is gaining control, becoming masters of our own trajectory, right? If I follow this formula, if I do these things, and if I strike this balance, if I find some equilibrium, I'm actually in control. Which smacks of hubris, right? It's just smacks of hubris. And I don't think that any of us have as much control as we would like, and I think we know it, which is why we try to go after it, which is why we try to chase it, and maybe this is one of the ways we try to achieve it, but I don't know that we have the capacity to be responsible with control. I think a lot would have to be sacrificed. We would have to come first in all things. Can you imagine if we really thought that we were balancing things out in life as well as what we'd like? My finances are always good. My family, my home life is always good. And I'm spending the right amount of time doing this, that, and the other. I'm meeting the needs around home and around work. Everything's leveling out. No one's getting too much and no one's getting too little. It would almost become a selfish endeavor. If anything was to upset that, if we really thought we had to have that, and anything came along and threw a wrench in the works, we would be so upset. And then we are once again out of whack. That's why I don't think we can ever be that way. So, what's the takeaway from all of this? Understand that life is topsy-turvy. Regulation is just probably not in our cards. Is it good to seek it? Is it good to try to plan for it? Yeah, I think so. I do think so. But it's good to try to find it and make it work for you, but don't count on it to always be there. I mean, what we'll do is it'll provide you some kind of pleasure in temporarily maybe corralling things in and making it work for you in that meantime. But don't count on it, because you're going to get upset when things are no longer going your way. Just enjoy it while things are working out. And when they're not, go, well, that's the way it goes. But I do honestly believe that opportunities in life are found in all the interruptions and all the vagaries and vicissitudes and sharp turns. I think that's where opportunities are found. I think that's where they're made. And I think that if you think it's unfair and you're not getting a fair shake, you're going to miss it. It's not all about us. It's just about, first of all, I think it's just about enjoying the ride. And then I think it's about being open to what is ever being presented to you, so that you don't miss the boat, but you don't miss the train, or however you want to think of it. You don't want to miss it. The best thing in your life, or the best things in life that could come along, might be right in front of you, but it might have taken shaking things up for you to see it, for things to actually culminate, for it to rear its head. And if you can't see that, it might be because you're trying to control things too much, and you're doing it by trying to level the playing field everywhere and trying to find some equilibrium. Just forget about that. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Now, some people understand this. They love it. They live this way. They embrace chaos. That's not me. I'm not even promoting that. I'm not saying that life should be chaotic, but I think I do think that people who don't mind chaos and just kind of, wag their head at it like, la, la, la. In some ways, I think they're more well-adjusted than the rest of us. as long as they're not using chaos to disrupt everyone else's life, as long as it's not a weapon. But anyway, I know people that don't use it as a weapon. They're perfectly nice people. They're great people to be around, and they're not as structured as I am. And that makes them a little more relaxed. However, it also makes them a little less disciplined, and so I think there's a trade-off there. But maybe that's just for another video. All right, guys. Like I said, I had no idea where this video was going to go. I knew I should have hit record. I'm glad something actually materialized out of all this. Did it mean anything to you? Has it helped? Has it made you think of something? Leave a comment down below. If you want to know what I have in my beard today, I'm actually using Coast to Coast Beards NorCal beard oil. Smells great. I'll leave a link down below. I can save you 20% on his products. And yeah, I'll leave a link and a code. So I think it's GB20. Yeah, he has a beard product company. I think his name is Jason. I believe it's his name. And he's out of Lakeland here. Great company. All right, guys. I appreciate your time. I will catch you on the next one. In the meantime, be wise.